Sunday morning, my dad was going to work and left about 6:30 or so. I remember because I used to always hear him getting ready and smell him brewing his coffee. and So he left uh, for work, and it was early. It was, I found out later, it was about 7:15 or so that we started hearing some airplanes going overhead over our house, and they seemed like they were just a lot louder than normal, so they were flying a little low. And us little kids went out and were wandering around, and we're looking up at the airplanes, and we noticed that there were red dots on their wings, and we thought, what's Anyway, we're waving at them and everything, and it wasn't 15 minutes later. Boom, boom, boom. We could hear uh, explosions. I don't know how far away, maybe 15 miles from our house, down below in the valley. And so as soon as that started happening, sirens started going off, and all the older kids ran out and grabbed all of us little kids and ran us all back into the house and made us lay down. And they said, "Don't move, stay right where you are," and everything. And this went on for about 3 hours, maybe a little bit longer. And it was all kind of exciting for us little kids. We didn't know what it was all about, We just were excited. Anyway, uh, after that stopped, it all of a sudden started quieting down, and then we heard the planes again coming over our house, heading back to their carriers or whatever, and and they dropped bombs out in the fields and stuff. They were unloading their bombs, and so then a siren went on, and we were told by the people that were watching us, "You can go out now," because. So we ran out and went to take a look around, found shrapnel in the sides of cars and in the sides of the house, and a crater from a bomb out on the road. And I remember as a little boy, I was kind of the leader of the pack, and we ran across the street into this foresty area, and we were wandering around there until we saw what we thought was a parachute, and it was a parachute, and hanging in the trees, and we just got spooked and thought, wow, maybe they're attacking us. We ran back home, and that was the main thing. I mean, there was a lot of buzz around. Everybody's on, we didn't have cell phones then, but there's people on the phone all the time calling different people to see if they're all right. Then I heard my dad told us that incident when he got home that day, that he had gotten in, punched in at the alarm at the guard gate at 7 o'clock. That's when he was supposed to go to work. He was always right on time. But he was a little bit before 7. But as soon as he got in the gate and started going into the Schofield Barracks area, or the shipyards or wherever it was, and the attack started. He and some friends ran to a submarine that they were working on close to the port, and helped man a machine gun, an anti-aircraft gun, and loading it. And one of the service personnel was trying to shoot and try to hit planes. And he told us of a good friend of his, a Japanese guy, who came to help them, who was running down the deck and was shot by one of the planes, and was paralyzed the rest of his life. So my dad had that bad feelings for Asians the rest of his life. It never went away. And living in Hawaii, that's hard to do because many of the Polynesians were part Asian. When I was a little boy, we had chickens and ducks, and the family was good about providing their own eggs. And when the chickens were ready, right, and they weren't going to be laying, they'd kill the chickens and we'd have them for dinner and stuff like that. But my job, I was given this job. I was given a little can of paint, an old can of paint, with a little paintbrush, And what happened is the chickens would peck on each other sometimes, and if the blood would start flowing from a pecking, other chickens would all attack that chicken until they killed it. And that happened over a few times. And so my dad gave me the job of watching the chickens. And as soon as one got pecked and it started bleeding, I was to run into the coop or the area or wherever the chicken was and catch it, hold it, and paint his butt and cover the red marks. And then they wouldn't get pecked on again. I was doing that one day, and all the family was sitting up on the porch. We live way up in the mountains. You could see right down to the ocean and everything. And the backyard kind of leveled. Then it dropped off down into a canyon. And one day I was out there chasing the chickens and grabbing them and painting them, and our big drake, who was a mean thing, came running after me. He saw what I was doing, I guess, and he didn't like it. He started chasing me, and I started running away from him. And he was pecking me in the butt and in the leg and everything. And I kept running. Then I tripped and fell, and the white paint went all over me. And a drake flew over my head and flew down the gully or something. And when I stood up, turned around, my dad was just roaring. I'd never seen him laugh so hard, ever. Somewhere when I was younger, uh, I was told the story of my dad. My grandpa, João Fernandes Neves, was a little tough little Portuguese uh, concrete guy. You know, but he really kept his thumb on his family, and evidently was real hard on the kids and stuff, especially the boys. And one day, one of his sons left, took off, didn't come home for dinner. He come to find out that he took off. He was leaving Hawaii. He was going to make a life for himself.
And this is Frank?
Frank, the oldest son. And he was I remember him as being one of the nicer ones. I kind of liked him. And a dark-haired guy, tall, and he took off. Nobody could find him. Then he found my grandpa found out that he had left for the United States. He was going to go out on his own, and he couldn't have been more than 18, maybe 17, 18, 19, something like that. Well, for some reason, my dad was the third oldest, so this was his oldest brother. There was a sister between, and my grandpa told my dad, "You have to go get him." And he said, "What? I've never even been off of this island." He said, "How do I go get him?" He said, "I don't know. You figure it out. You get him, or you will hear from me. You have to get him." And he says, I don't have any money. I don't have, and he gave him $20, and he says, "That's all you get, and you bring him home, or else." And so my dad said, "I guess I'll do it." And there was no guessing. You just did it. And he took off and went down to where the boats were and got a job on the boat to work for passage across to San Francisco, and took off. He was always frugal with his money, so he probably still had the 20 when he got to San Francisco. Met up with some other people that were young guys that were doing the same kind of thing as my uncle Frank was, and got asking around what could have happened, and found out that most of the guys were heading for Detroit so they could work in the auto industry or the plants that were just starting up after the war, and so there was opportunities there. So he has never told us how he did it, but all I know is with the people that he got to meet, they told him, well, the only way you get across is to catch a plane. You can't afford a bus or anything. So, catch a train. So he went down, never done this before, jumped on a train with a bunch of other hobos, and he just found out that it was the thing to do because these were the best people. They've always been depicted as rowdy criminal type. They weren't. They're all looking out for each other. If they had some food, they'd share it. If they jumped off a train because they knew there was pumpkin plots or watermelons, they'd all jump off, get what they could, catch the next train, share it. And he says, we got through okay. But while he was going, one day he was in a boxcar and there was a guy playing a guitar just playing a guitar and singing some old songs, some cowboy songs. And he says, "Hey, you went over and introduced himself, and sat down next to the guy, and the guy became a real good friend. They traveled together for about 5 days across country, and it was Burl Ives, the singer, became a very popular singer, and they kept in touch for a while until for about 4 or 5 years, and that was it. Well, my dad finally rounded up his brother somewhere in the Chicago or somewhere. He says, anyway, he rounded up, found out where he was, went and I talked to him. And his brother was really excited, happy to see him because he thought, oh, some other brothers are coming to join me. And he says, no, I'm not here to join you. I'm here to take you home. He said, oh, are you kidding? No way I'm going to go back. I'm not going back. I'm making some money now. I don't have my dad jumping on my butt about everything. And he says, I love the freedom. He says, I don't care what you say. You're going back. And he says, why? He says, because if you don't go back, he's going to kill me and kill you. He'll find you and kill you too. And it was a pride thing more than anything for my grandpa. So Frank decided, okay, I'll go back. Went back with him, went back. My grandpa, Zhao, used to sit at the head of the dinner table. And he was, like I said, a mean, tough old guy, insisted on all of his kids working hard, this and that, and just like he did. A little wiry little guy. I don't think he was 5'5", 5'6". All of his other kids turned out to be huge. I think his wife was even taller than him. But anyway, anyway, he wasn't a smiley, happy guy. But anyway, he had a rule at the table. When you came in, nobody spoke. First of all, the rule was Grandpa, Vovo, got fed first. Nobody spoke at the table. And when you wanted something, you just pointed at it. Nobody said a word. And that was his rule. Nobody said a word. And he says one day they were eating at the table, and one of my uncles, August, who ended up being a bit part movie actor at one point in time, good guy, real good guy, real handsome guy. And he said to one of his brothers, hey, pass the potatoes, I'm starving. And that was the last thing he said. Grandpa picked up his dish and threw it at him. Threw his dish at August, and August ducked his head and it hit the top of his spine and paralyzed him. And he fell over and they didn't know what to do. And Grandpa said, pack him out of here, take him to the hospital, whatever. And he was paralyzed for a few days. And then he came back and it changed a lot of things at dinner table. He was wise enough to know that he had to make some changes. But I remember when we moved to San Francisco, all of us spoke pidgin, which is, I don't even know what it is now, but, the kind. Where are you on? Nah, what do you want to eat? The kind. And there was always that. And it's funny now, but it wasn't so funny then, because kids weren't very tolerant. And so I quickly on my own started reading and working on dialect and everything. And when my brothers and sisters would talk, I don't, no, this is how you say it, and say it right, and say it 10 times, until we all were pretty fluent. But we were discriminated somewhat. Being poor was part of it, but language was another part. What saved me right from the start was sports. I was too good for them to talk me down. I could run faster than most. I could throw a football further than anybody. I could pitch. I had a dart of a fastball. Should have been a major leaguer, and on and on. You know, it just and it just cooled people off to the kids that I hung around with. They became real friendly. You know, so it was that went on for a short period of time. Yeah, I was about 12, and I played. I loved baseball, and we had a rocky wall out the side of our house. And so every chance that I got when nobody was around, I'd go out there, and it was a rough kind of concrete ground, and there was pebble type concrete. So I'd grab a tennis ball and I'd throw it at the wall, and with it not being a flat wall, the ball could go anywhere, and that's what really helped me with quickness in basketball and baseball. I I could see it, boom, it's going there. I'd beat it to the right or to the left or back up and so I was really good with baseball. Basketball came on afterwards, but baseball was the first sport. And we'd always have a game every night. Every kid's in the neighborhood would have things done, and we'd all come out and play out in the street and play baseball. Girls, Monica was a great hitter, great player, fiery. I, ever since I was a little boy, and I'm sure it was the influence of my mother, I wanted to be a priest. Raised Catholic in a very strict Catholic family. We always went to church every Sunday. I don't care what. We'd go to midnight mass on New Year's Eve, Christmas Eve, whatever, and it wasn't too bad, except the little guys didn't really want to go, and you'd have to help with them when you got 5, 6 brothers. You got to find their socks and shoes. Good luck. And mother was real adamant about, and we'd always be late. And I think that's where Embry started. It got it. Mother always told me, once a Catholic, always a Catholic. I mean, all these stories about we've been Catholic forever. There's no other religion. And as a little boy, I just sucked it all in. And then I thought, I love my mom, and she's so works so hard for the Catholic Church. She'd iron their priests' vestments and their tablecloths and everything just to help them out. And she just really devoted. So I thought, I wanted to be a priest. I wanted a different life. I wanted to be able to serve people, etc., etc. Anyway, so I went to a Catholic seminary for a year and a half between my junior high school and my high school years. I was about 10. I was an early riser anyway, and my dad would get up early on Saturday morning to golf, almost every Saturday, like clockwork. And
was he good at golf?
He was great. He was really great. For a guy that didn't have a lot of time to pitch or practice or anything, he was one of the best putters I've ever seen. He's just and he hit a ball. All of his family played, evidently. I didn't know that, but later I found out. He hit a ball that was a low liner type of. It never went off the ground 20 feet, and he was very accurate, very good putter, very good sand trap, straight as an arrow. And anyway, I started caddying for him, and very interesting that he didn't believe in paying you. You're having the experience of coming with me, so you'll learn some things. And after playing caddying for him for a couple of years, some of his old cronies started giving me golf clubs, and then finally when my dad stopped playing, he gave me my snake killer, my putter. But
that was his putter.
That was his putter. I still have some of the irons from these old guys, and they're always kind to me and everything. And if they'd buy me a sandwich afterwards, they'd sit there and they'd have the beer, coffee, whatever they did, and I'd just be sitting around. They'd give me a putter. He says, "Here, take some balls, go putt." And my dad would never let me do that. And then one guy started showing me how to chip. So my dad taught me how to chip, but putting, he did. he finally did perfect it better, but it was a way to get the kid out of the way, so he could have a beer or two. And uh, I, I remember those old guys. They're really kind to me.
Did your dad win tournaments?
Yeah, he was that good. He was like club championships. He was second, third. I don't know if he won much, but because he had kind of a temper, you know, he'd start screwing up, and you could just tell, oh, stay out of his way. And the other guys knew that too. They don't say about that bad shot. But that was my one thing that I had with my dad. My dad had, of course, with that large family, he always had a station wagon. And it was one of those that had two different color panels on the side. It was two-tone. He always kept it up, did all of his own car work and everything. He would get under the car and do his stuff, and then he'd ask you for tools. And I was usually the one that helped him. And if I got the wrong tool, he'd throw it out from under the car, hit you in your toes and say, no, that's the wrong one, get the other, stupid kid. Anyway, that's why I always hated working on cars, because I always worried that I might go under there and find somebody like him. No, that was it. And then he had a Buick. I remember he had a big old Buick, a green one, that he was always under it fixing it. And my own first car was, I didn't get my car till I was 19 and married. And somebody either gave or sold us an old post office kind of a runaround car. It was a four-door Ford. It was in 1954 or 52. And it was a great running car. It started up all the time and everything. There was nothing fancy about it. But we didn't realize until Mom had Steve as a baby. And she and Judy were going somewhere, and Judy was holding Steve. And when they went around a corner, the door on the passenger side swung open on its own, and she was holding onto the door and started to go out and came back, and they stopped the car and says, no, we're not doing this. It was a scary car. We kept that for not very long. And then the next car we had was a 54 Chevy Bel Air. I loved that car. But I had a good chance to sell it and make about $1,000 on it. For those days, it was like $1 million now. And so I sold it. And we got something else. And the next car I got, was a Plymouth. Oh, what a dud that was. Plymouth, it was a Plymouth, and I can't remember what the rest of it was. It had big fish tails out, gas hog. It's always stalling. It always seemed to be fine until we got on the bridge. When we got on the bridge, it started chugging. Something about it didn't want to go on the bridge. Anyway, so we finally got rid of that. And by then, I was close to being a journeyman. I was probably 22, 23. And we got our first nice car. Almost brand new, 59 Impala. It was just sleek black with fins out. It was a cool car. It was a two-door hardtop, all leather. We were so proud of that car. But my mom was great for, but I remember one time my mom would discipline. She didn't do much of discipline. Well, that was a bad thing. You did something bad. Wait till your dad gets home. Was a wonderful thing to hear. you'd pee your pants when Dad showed up. But anyway, but a few times she was so upset. She says, "Okay, go get me a stick. Go get me a stick." And so the kids would go get a stick, and she'd paddle, or a wooden spoon or something. But usually she'll tell them, "Go get a stick." So it was a thing in our house, go get a stick. So one time I did something wrong, and I was a good kid, very seldom did anything wrong, but I did something wrong. And she said, "Okay, go get a stick." And what she insisted is whoever was home had to stand there and watch. So they'd stand there and watch so that you know what could happen to you, that kind of thing. It never worked. Kids were always lying on kids. But anyway, I remember one time, I don't know why I did it, but my mom says, "Well, go get me a stick." And I went out and I got this real tiny stick, She came back and, "Steve, You go get her me a stick or you're going to talk to Dad at midnight tonight. And I said, oh, okay. Then I went out there. And I got her a little bit bigger one. She said, that's not big enough. So I went out and I got a big 2x4. And I walked out and gave it to her. And she chased me around the house with that. And then she started laughing. She started laughing and she started laughing. And she sat on the floor and all the kids were laughing. And I never got a spanking. Never got to talk to my dad about it.
That's a great one, Dad.
Yeah. Oh, I loved it. Loved it since I was a little boy. Little boy in Hawaii. I loved it so much. My uncles were, 7 of them were merchant marines. And I've heard that whenever they came in town, they'd take the kids' candy, this and that. They'd always bring me a bag of crack seed. And I just loved that stuff. I ate that more than I didn't eat candy and stuff. In fact, I didn't even eat candy until I met your mother. I haven't stopped since. And then my mother thought, you know what? Everybody loves crack seed so much. I'm going to find the recipe and make it. So she went down to some Korean store and found out how they did it. So she bought the plums and all the stuff, and she started making it at home. And it was horrible. It was terrible. We ate it because it was something to eat, but we never liked it. And yet my uncles, when they come in, they'd still say, "Well, we brought crack seed." "Oh, I make my own. Kids don't eat it." They'd slip us our crack seed. My uncles were so good about us that way. Really good guys. I said something in a Catholic classroom when I was in the 7th grade. Teacher said something, and then I didn't have the answer. And she said, and they were really mean teachers, frustrated nuns. Anyway, Dominican, and she said something to me, and all I said was, "Oh, so what? Come here." And I walked up and I said, "I didn't say anything bad." She said, "Yeah, you sassed me. Go down to the office." So I went down to the office, and the next thing I know, she came down and they called my mom. And my dad happened to be home. And she told him what she said. "Oh, he was sassing me and everything. He was just making it a lot worse. It was just a stupid little thing." And next thing I know, I look out down the hallway and here's my dad. Dum, 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 and everything, just like the sound of a high-five note moving. Dum, dum, and he's coming down the hallway and I'm thinking, oh my God. I'm sitting there in my class and here's this Karen Anderson, beautiful blonde of 2 days. And he walks in and he says, "Steve Karen." He didn't knock and "Can I come in?" He opened the door, walked in. He says, "Steve Karen." Came up and he says, "Sister Angeline, what did you do?" "Oh, he was sassing me," and some of the kids said, "No, he wasn't. He just said, 'You guys shut up,'" And so he says, "Okay. Well, I think we'll take care of it. He'll never do this again, believe me." And she said, "Oh, what are your plans?" And he pulls out this cone he had, little hat. Said, "Dunce on it," and he made me sit in the corner on maybe sit on a corner in the class with this cap. And he says, "You stay like that the rest of the day, and don't you ever backtalk anybody again." Well, I did, but I kept looking around. I could look at the girl because if there was any chance, it was over. Always try to not just work hard, but work so that someone or whomever would see the work and say, "Wow, that was done well." That was my dad. My mom, she was the spiritual one. I told you the story that, years after I joined the church, she told me one time that I respect what you've done now. She says, "It's been 8 years." She says, I was hoping and praying that you'd come back Catholic Church, and you never did. And I said, "No, Mom, because I believe what I'm doing." And she said, "Well, you just be the very best Mormon you can be." And that's what she would have left. Her legacy would be. Mm-hmm. Be the very best person you could be. Bill Santiago, after I came out of the service, I was living with Bill. and doing odd jobs and stuff. And
who's Bill?
Santiago is the only one that I've baptized into the church other than my children. Bill Santiago played forward on our basketball team and our baseball team. One day, we're lining everybody up to fight. I boxed about 6, 8 times in a police athletic league. I loved boxing, but I loved the defense of it, not the hurting somebody, but the defense. And I was good. I had real quick hands, like I said, basketball. And I fought about 5 or 6 guys and beat them up, won all the race. So one time we both showed up for a match, and his guy didn't show, or mine, and so they put us together. Now Bill at the time was 160 pounds. I was 128, and I looked at Brother Bernard. I said, "You gotta be kidding, you know?" And Bill was 6'2", and I was about 5'9", and long arms and everything. And I went out there, and I said, they said, "No, you gotta fight him." I went out there, and Bill just peppered me. He was left-handed. This jab just kept me away. And finally, I think we only fought 2 minutes, 3 rounds. And finally, the last round, and he was cocky. He knew piece of cake. And so the only thing I remember from Willie Papping, Sadler, the champs at the time in the lightweights division, time that left, when he threw the left, drop down and hook him, get him in the ribs. And he says, all the big guys will finally start giving you little jabs instead of that full jab. And I remember I did that about 3 or 4 times. And he was mad. He was bitten. I mean, he was a mean kid anyway. And so finally, afterwards, Brother Bernard comes out and says, "Well, Bill, you're the winner. But did you learn a lesson?" "Oh, well, yeah, he was a pretty tough kid. I couldn't knock him down." He says, "Yeah." And he hit me a couple of times where anybody else would go down. I was too mean, too stubborn. No way you could knock me down. My dad was the one that taught me that. Don't let anybody knock you down, We got to know each other a little bit more, and we became closest friends. Hung out the rest of high school, a couple of years of high school, and after high school, and baptized him 12, 15 years later. Bill and I I was supposed to go to a guard meeting like every other week, and I was supposed to go that night, and our old high school basketball team, players that we knew were playing in a championship game at UC Berkeley. So he said, "What do you think?" And I said, "Oh, man, I hate to miss." He said, "Yeah, you're going to get in trouble if you don't." I said, "Heck, let's go." So we went to the game. I didn't even have a car. He was the only one who had a car. Drove over to Berkeley, went in. And we were watching the game. It was a very exciting game and everything. And we were sitting there, and then I looked across and we were always looking for girls. We were always looking, what about that? What about that? And we just scored a few times. But anyway, I saw the two over there, and one was Judy, who was a short blonde, and Mom, tall, darker hair. And I told him, I says, "Whoa." I says, "One's short, one tall. You're tall, I'm shorter." He says, "Yeah, let's go. Let's go for it." And we went over, we snuck around, went over there, ran into him, started talking to him, and asked him if they needed a ride home. And I don't know, Mom or Judy said, "Well, yeah, we'll get a ride home." So we drove them, and we went to High's drive-in restaurant where you like a McDonald's place. We went in there, and the girls, I was in the back seat with Judy because she was shorter, and he was in the front seat with Mom. And they had to stop and go powder their nose. Anyway, they went out and went into the bathroom, did whatever they do, and then they came back. When they came back, Mom got in the back seat, and Judy got in the front seat. I did it. Over. 3 days later, we were talking about getting married. Never met anybody. Yeah, never met anybody that just clicked. And she felt the same way. In fact, she felt it stronger than I did. Yeah, with the Holy Ghost. Yeah. She was semi-active Latter-day Saint. Yeah. And yeah, 2 days later. So that was on March 7th we met. And we married on September 7th, 6 months later.
On March 7th, 1957.
Yeah. What was my feeling? I was thrilled. I was thrilled. You know, you start realizing, boy, you don't find girls like this. She was such a jewel, you know. And she could cook, she could clean, she was smart.
Mhm.
My second experience was playing as a non-member on the basketball team. Yeah, and I remember then they had missionaries come, Dave Dowdy, and I don't know the other.
How'd you get invited to play on the team if you weren't a Mormon?
I knew some guys. I played in the city league, and I knew a couple of Mormon kids that played, and they said, "Hey, where do you live?" I told them, "Hey, you live in our ward boundaries. Come to the practice and come to play with us." So I started hanging out with them and playing the early morning basketball stuff. You know, I always did that, and I started meeting them and their families and stuff. Never going to church, just meeting them. And I remember thinking, you know, my first impression was, what great people these people are. Now I came from, you know, good people, but there was something special about these people. I've told Mom since, there's something special about these people. I want to hang out with them and stuff. Not join the church. I was devout Catholic, you know. Well, I was starting to get less devout, but anyway. Um, so I started playing with it, and the bishop of the ward thought, well, if you're going to play, then you need to come to a meeting. And that was a requirement back then, that you had to come to at least one sacrament meeting a month or twice a month. And so I thought, okay, I'll go. And I remember the first time I went with the basketball guys. I don't think Mom even went, but I went with the basketball guys. And went over, they all got in the pew. And when I got in the pew, I knelt, I genuflected. That's what you do in the Catholic Church. They all like, oh my God. And they were all rascals too, you know. They were, you know, bishop, stake president's sons who were drinking on the weekend and stuff. You'd never know it. They were so nice, but they were rascals. Yeah. But anyway, uh, and then through that, then the bishop decided, and this was other families too, that you had to, the requirement is that you got to come more often than that, and then you got to see the missionaries, and you gotta, a big factor was coming as a non-member, going back to Salt Lake, you know, and coming to Salt Lake and realizing, wow,
With the basketball team.
with the basketball team, really, I met some wonderful people I didn't even know. Back then, you had to stay with family, friends and family. And so we stayed with some people in Salt Lake and some of these older houses that were just some of the most wonderful people. They just took us in, you know. Didn't know us from Adam, but they knew all of us. Well, they thought I'm sure they thought I was Mormon too, but no. But it started working on me, you know. And I think the biggest factor was prior to getting married, I went in to meet my brother, who was in the Portuguese family way back when. Uh, if mother and father couldn't make a decision, they'd go to their oldest son, and he would help them make decision or make the decision. Well, my brother was a pretty proud character. He was in his last couple of years of novitiate, become a Catholic priest. And so my mom said, okay, you're going to get married. You need to go see Manuel. And I thought, I hardly even know the guy, you know, but you know, if that's what we have to do, we'll do it. And I remember going in to see my brother, and he was sitting in there was Franciscan robes and everything, and I went in to see him and talked to him, and he had a list of questions, and I realized after the conversation with this, but we had a list of questions and stuff, and I just told him, you know, it was like a little interview. And I just told him that, yeah, I was married, and that was it. For sure? Oh, yeah, are you kidding? You know, we're getting married this and this date. Go to Reno. You realize what you're doing? You know, we've been taught as Catholics that you do it this way and that way. And I says, brother, I love the girl. What am I going to say? I love the girl. You know. A little amusing incident about that. I was being calm and cool, 19 years old, or calm and cool, and we were sitting there, and they were getting all the information. Well, Mom started having contractions while we're sitting there, and so, you know, this gal that was taking all the admissions officers turns to me and said, "Mr. Neves, you seem to be all right with all of this. Tell me your phone number." And I said, "Duh, duh, duh." I couldn't. And my mouth said, "Hold it for a minute." Okay, it is. I'll never forget that. I just never. Who was talking? Some of the things I remember about Steve is, for a while, Mom was working and I was working. We were both working. So Grandma Shields watched him, and and Steve, since he was a little baby, hated peas. She'd feed him anything else, he'd eat it. She put the peas in his mouth, he'd go spit it out. And Grandma said, "No, I'll put a little honey on it, a little sugar in it." He'd come home at night, she'd step all over. Kid would not eat. But he was such a cute little boy, a good little boy. Steve was a very quiet kid, never good kid. The best thing ever happened to him was he got into running, and he just had a great wind and everything. And he went on for Irvington and ran freshman, sophomore, which is hard to do because there's a lot of competition. And he was in the papers and everything. It was good for his esteem and stuff. It was always his goodness. He was just a good person. And I would say that's his quality. How he handled finally leaving his wife in California to make a new life for her. His son, Kylan, here in Utah. That was one of the proudest, hardest things that I could imagine. And he did it. And he went. And he got a job way up in some mine up in Nevada, and took care of his son. And his son moved in with Matt and Ashley. That was probably the proudest moment. And it was really good for him because it got him away from some of the vices he had. And he started writing, which Steve has never done. He started writing, and I think it brought him through some real cracks. And other guys are harder working than Steve was. He was just a hard worker. He'd work different jobs and side jobs, and in a tough field in the cement business. When John F. Kennedy died, what was that, 73?
63.
63, yeah. Dave was 2 years old. And I remember when he died, and Dave was just barely talking, and he came up with a poem. One of the things that you wish your whole life that you would have written it down. I don't know whether we did or not, but we don't know what it is. And he wrote this poem about John F. Kennedy. And it was the most tender thing. Dave always was a tender kid. He used to call Steve Mm-mm. He couldn't say his name, so he called him Mm-mm. And it was something else. But Dave was just a joy of a little boy. And cute, and very giving, no temper tantrums, no, got along with everybody. If I remember right, he wasn't even shy. Aunts and uncles would come over that he hasn't seen. Go right to him. He's just a loving kind of a person. Mellow, loving. Ever since he was a little guy, very happy, very connected to Steve. They'd sit together next to each other, and he called Steve Mm-mm. And he was a lover to Mom, and He was just a well-liked kid. Everybody in the neighborhood liked him. They all kind of watched out for him. I always was concerned about him being frail when he was younger because he had a couple of incidents where mom had to stay up all night with him and because of croup. And the proudest moment was when he came crying to me, saying he didn't receive a football jersey, so he wasn't going to be on the team, and he might be able to find his way back on it. But he had worked out so hard for it, Dad. What am I going to do? And I told him, just off the top of my head, find another sport. He's like, I don't know any other sports. I said, you got a golf course right down the street from us. Go down to Tri-City and start playing. I don't know, And the next thing I knew, he moved on. And I think that's one of the great qualities that Dave has. He doesn't dwell too much on anything. A few years ago, he had a situation where he lost his job. And you could sit there and sue the company, it wasn't righteous and all this and that. What did he do? He said, I got to keep working. I got to keep food on the table. And I didn't know he knew how to do it. And he started doing sprinkler jobs and all over the place, here, there. Found one of his friends had a license. And so I guess he paid him to use his license. And he had jobs all over. Hardest working. I talked to him at 7, 8 at night, and he'd still be working out by candlelight, But the quality I would remember most about Dave is he doesn't dwell. He moves on. One of many proud moments of Mark was when he had the dogs up in Highland. And, he mated the dogs and got pups and sold them. And then he had to have a run for the dogs to live in. And he called businesses and told them, look, I'm a kid, don't have any money, but I can pay you over a period of time. He was just a goer. And it was just, I was proud of him. And he's been like that all his life. He doesn't stop. Things don't stop him. When he lost his house down in the river bottoms, I never saw him crying about it and everything. He's okay. What are we gonna do? What's best? He and Cheryl get together, and he's okay. This is the best thing to do. Boom, and look at landed on his feet, opened up a business. I was thinking, how in the heck is he open? He just kept after things, Just great quality, good father, good priesthood bearer. One of the proudest moments is we were living in American Fork, and they had an American Fork Steel Days parade, and so we're all sitting on chairs along the parade route and everything, and everybody's coming down the road, all the bands, American Fork Band and Springville Band and all this and that, and next thing we see is a float is coming by, and it's Little League baseball, and Chris is on the front of the stars of the league, and she was just beaming, and everybody was clapping for her and everything. And little did we know, we did not even know she was a star pitcher. Oh, what? She just had all kind of athletic ability. I think she could have gone really far if she would have stayed with it. But a few years later, I was Elders Quorum president, and I was talking to young men, and they were saying, do you know that there was senior day at American Fork High? And I says, yeah. He says, oh yeah, they had all these games going on. The boys were playing against the girls and everything. And Chris threw a touchdown pass 60 yards. He said, what? He said, yep. And he says, she should have been on the team. She was making them look bad. Confidence that I have in her that she's going to get it right finally. I have every confidence. She will get it right and will be an inspiration to other members of the family. Mush face is what I used to call her as a little girl. She used to eat mush and have it all over her face. Such a loving girl, such a lover of mama. Hardest worker. She'd just dive in. Mom would give her assignments and she'd just stick with it until it was done. I'll never forget the night that they were leaving. All of you kids and mom were leaving to come to meet me in Israel. And they had to clean the house, clean all the house and everything, this and that. And they had to sleep on the floor. And when they're sleeping on the floor, there are mice running around. And she withstood all of that, you know. She stuck with mom. She was the biggest help to her. On the trip, can you imagine all those kids and 16 pieces of luggage and mom and Gina spearheading all of this. You know, a little baby that was 1.5, 2 years old. Energetic boys. But stick-to-itiveness. Her deciding, I'm not making any money, doing what I'm doing. I don't like working for a stupid finance company that question their ethics and so forth. I'm going to go back to school. And she went back to school. She never even finished high school. She went back to school. Kept getting grades, better grades, this, that, until she pulled herself up and out of the mess. Look where she is now. Yeah, district attorney's office. So. My proudest moment with Matt was when I baptized him, and I'm pretty sure it was in Hawaii, but it wasn't so much where I baptized him, but what he said after being baptized. He said, Dad, I'm going to go as long as I can without sinning. And I remember talking to him about a week later. He says, I went a week without sinning, without saying anything bad in any way, thinking any bad. None of my kids said that. So that was the proudest moment, and there's been others, you know, or his plays and stuff, but that was the one I cherish most. There is something about Matt. There's a loving attitude to the family, to members of the family. You can just feel his love. No matter, watching him perform as a high school musician in his orchestra and going to some of the state affairs, finals and stuff. His own special way that he shows love to family and friends. People like to be around him because you can feel his love. Or one of the highlights would be how he bounced back from being attacked while he was on his mission by some young men. How he said, if Joseph could go through what he went through, I sure can stay out here and do the same. He has a way about people, about making everyone feel comfortable. Whether it's somebody close to him, as I've observed, or someone he barely knows. He has a quality, a God-given quality to melt with people, to make them feel comfortable. Where did all these kids come from? Anyway, okay. Shawnee. A couple of things with Sean. One is how well he got along with Joel, for one thing. Crazy mixed of two different people. And yet, Sean was another person that was well loved by many, many people. I don't think he had any enemies. I saw Sean step aside to let other people have their light shine instead of on him, or it maybe should have been. I see him do that over and over. Best things that Sean and I did was go to my brother's funeral. It was such a good bonding thing. And he was just loved by the people there. Evidenced by people still talking about him. He's just got a real loving way about him that not many have. One of the proudest moments that I remember is her giving birth to little Kanoa, and going through the temple with that little guy when he was a year and a half old, and having him sealed to his parents was one of the highlights of my life. Anne Marie is such a loving person. She'd do anything for anybody. Usually ends up doing that. Loving person, easy to be around, feisty, always has been. Her famous saying when she was a little girl in Hawaii, she'd even say it when we live on Foothill. If she was mad at someone, she'd say, "Stay off my property." And I think she lives her life that way, you know. And for any of her children or her, they'll stay off my property. But love her to death. Just she seems to be the bind in keeping Gina and Chris together in the family. And of course, other members. There's so much to love about her, you know. She's forgiving, she's a beautiful person. Love her to death. Have for 57, 8 years. And I couldn't imagine life without her. Even though we know that's going to happen, she's just really a good person with some spunk. You know, she's not a yes dear person. She gives her opinion, and sometimes I don't like it, but it's her opinion. And when I stop and think about it, most of the time she's right. Loves her children, her grandchildren. I don't know of anyone else that sees a baby. It could be from Timbuktu, and she goes gaga. She was Heavenly Father brought her here on this earth to love babies. I can't say any more other than I just love her to death. You know, she's a great person. I'm lucky to have met her and have lived with her through all these times, good and bad, rocky, smooth. Tried to improve my skills so that I could feed my family, and so I've taken that's the basic stuff. But as a dad, always trying to improve myself spiritually too. You know, always work for myself. Still am today. You know, realizing that you've got to be pretty darn good to get where we were trying to get to. So I would say that's work hard, support your family, make decisions, and follow the Holy Ghost. You know, try to be the best person you can be. So. learning to say yes, dear, in many languages. No, no. As a husband, I've learned to really temper some traits that I've had, probably picked up along the way, some traits that I've had to. And Mom's still trying to clothe me right and not that die stupid. So, that kind of thing. I think you have that same problem. But anyway, it's been a great life. It's been a great life. When I had my heart attack 15 years ago, that first one, I was not afraid. I was not afraid. I felt completely at ease with it, saying, I'm ready. I think I'm as ready as I'll ever be. I never worried, not a minute. In fact, I worried more when I heard Mom was flying down. I said, oh boy, there goes the potato chips, there goes the hamburgers. Anyway, but I was completely. One thing that I've always felt, and I've not really thought about it a lot, but I've always felt, is if, no matter who it is, if I can help, I'm willing to help, assist in any way that I could assist and be productive, I remember as a little boy once, I guess I got it when I was a little kid. I was about 8, 9 years old, and I was coming home from St. Anthony's, walking up the hill back to my house. And as I was walking up the hill, there was smoke billowing from those houses that all stuck together like sandwiches. And I remember kids are all running away. And I went up to it, and a lady was coming down the stairs, and she says, my grandma and the baby are up there. And I remember thinking, yeah, didn't even think twice about it. Ran in there, grabbed the baby out of the crib, ran the grab, brought her down. Didn't stick around to take pictures and all that junk. And the people that lived there knew, oh, that's one of the Neves kids. I know which one it was, Neves kids. But it was just an automatic. Ever since then, if I wanted to be remembered for anything, is that I'm always willing to help. So, whether it be a car ride to the airport, or to go out with somebody to home teach that you don't know, to teach a Sunday school lesson, to do. I've always said willing, and I would attribute that a lot to my mom. She was always giving. So.
I'm going to ask you a hard question. What do you love about Mom? Are you ready to answer that?
How about next week, Sunday? This is worse than being in the grilling room, Provo jail. What do you cook all the time?
Your mother had a Hungarian neighbor.
I
that
know.
taught her how to make it.
Bye-bye.
It was a Hungarian dish.
Okay, it was a Romanian dish from Africa.